fantasy football season is just flying by. Here we are, week 9. Let's hit the waiver wire. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Welcome back to another week of fantasy football. Here we are already. It's week 9, and we have a lot of teams on bye week this week. We had a few injuries, nothing overly crazy here in week 8, but we got to get those rosters set, and there's a few guys out there on waivers that may be able to help you out here down the stretch, and we're going to get into this list real quick, though. Just a reminder, we have 6 teams on a bye week this week. We're going to be without all the players on the Cardinals, Bengals, Colts, Jags, Giants, and Eagles. So if you have anybody in your lineup on those teams, let's make sure we get them out. The last thing you want is to try to wait till the last minute to set your lineup, and then you take a big fat 0 because you got somebody on a bye week. It's a rookie move. We don't want to have any of that happening over here. But let's get into the list of who we should add here for week 9 from the waiver wire. All right, let's kick it off with the quarterback position. Maybe you had like an Andrew Luck or a Carson Wentz this week, and you're going to be without them because they're on bye week. There are a few guys out there right now on waivers that are under 50% owned that could get you by for a week if needed. First guy I'm going to talk about, it's going to be Baker Mayfield. And yes, I know a lot of you guys just heard the name Baker Mayfield and went, ugh, I'm just so sick of hearing about Baker Mayfield. And I get it. A lot of people don't really care for Baker Mayfield, but we're not trying to find our new favorite player here. We're trying to find somebody to get us by in a pinch on a bye week or an injury replacement, whatever it may be. Baker Mayfield has a decent week 9 matchup at home against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Browns just cleaned house, right? No more Hugh Jackson, no more Todd Haley. Greg Williams will be the interim coach there. That dude is like an overturned Jack in the Box. He's just like way overstrung. But I could totally see an opportunity here for the Browns offense where they can go out there, be energized by these moves. Hopefully, maybe there was issues in that locker room. We know that Haley and Jackson didn't really get along. That's out of the way now. Hopefully this offense can start firing. Baker Mayfield in a matchup against the Chiefs who are going to score some points, he's going to be forced to throw the ball. And even if it's garbage points, even if they're trailing large in the second half, Baker Mayfield is somebody who you could grab off waivers just to get you by a bye week. And it's a decent matchup he has this week. Dak Prescott's going to be next up on the list for the Dallas Cowboys. And I know he's another fan favorite out there, right? Yeah, I know. You guys don't like Dak Prescott either, but it's a bye week fill-in. We're not trying to, start him for the rest of the season. They're coming off the bye week. They just signed Amari Cooper. It's something that gives Dak Prescott another weapon. Do we really know what we're going to get with Amari? Not so much. I mean, he's kind of one of the most inconsistent wide receivers there is in football, but he does have the talent, and it actually gives Dak another weapon. The last 2 games he played before this last week's bye week, Jacksonville and Washington, no interceptions in either game, and by far 2 of his best fantasy games of the season. Week 7 against the Redskins had 273 yards, which is a season high so far. Only 1 touchdown, no interceptions, did have 2 lost fumbles, but he's starting to get involved in the running game again, and that boosts his value from week to week. They've had a whole week to prep for this game, and I have a feeling they're going to try to come out there and show off their shiny new toy, if you want to, call Amari Cooper that. I'm looking for a decent week for Dak Prescott. If you're in a pinch and you got somebody on a bye week, he's somebody who could fill in for you and have a decent week here in week 9. All right, last guy I'm going to talk about is going to be Ryan FitzMagic, making his reappearance here on the Waiver Wire show, and I'm totally stoked about it. This guy is somebody who is just fun to watch play the game of football. He came back in here week 8 after Jameis Winston completed more passes to his opponent than he did to his own teammates. What does FitzMagic do? Comes in, 194 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, led the Bucs all the way back in the game. And it was actually fun to see. The team seems to respond a little bit better to Ryan FitzMagic than they do Jameis Winston, which is not a huge shock. After you saw that whole pregame speech last year where he's eating a W, where everybody looks like totally lost, I can see this locker room being somewhat divided with Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick. They seem to play better with Ryan Fitzpatrick. And yes, I know, with FitzMagic, you're going to get the interceptions, kind of like you are with Jameis. That's not going to change. But the way this offense functions under Ryan Fitzpatrick, puts them almost on another level. This is somebody who averaged almost 50 fantasy points a game here to start the year. 3 straight games over 400 yards, had a total of 11 touchdowns in the first 3 games, came out, had a bad game, and here we've had Jameis. Now we get FitzMagic back on the road in Carolina If you're looking for a bye week replacement, he's definitely somebody who is intriguing. He's only owned now in 7% of leagues because everybody dropped him thinking it was just going to be Jameis the rest of the year. It's not. It's going to be FitzMagic, and it may be him for rest of season. If you have a struggling quarterback, you're looking for some depth on your roster, he is somebody I would definitely pick up because you never know. He could go out there, throw you for 300 to 400 yards a week, multiple touchdowns, has plenty of weapons to throw to. Chris Godwin, Deshaun Jackson, Mike Evans, the running game, not so much. But they have tons of weapons on the outside, especially now with O.J. Howard taking a leap forward, still have Cameron Brate. I like Ryan Fitzpatrick going forward, and if you need somebody here for Week 9, I have no issues picking him up and starting him. Now we're going to move on to running backs, and there's not a whole lot available out there on the waiver wire. There's nobody that you can go out there that you want to spend a high waiver claim on that you can pick up and start right away. I get that. I got 2 names here, and they're more like a stash. If you have some room on your bench, looking for kind of a little bit of a lottery ticket, maybe somebody that pans out a little bit better later here, second half of the season. First guy I'm going to talk about is going to be Ito Smith of the Atlanta Falcons, coming off the bye week. Ito hasn't done anything totally crazy. Yes, he's had touchdowns in 3 out of his last 4 games played. They're coming off the bye week. Tevin Coleman has kind of underwhelmed yet again. His game before the bye week, 11 carries, 50 yards, and a touchdown. It's the first touchdown on the ground he's had since week 1. You know, when Devontae Freeman went out, we kind of thought Tevin Coleman was going to catapult up into this, low-end RB1 stratosphere, and the guy just hasn't done it. He's only averaging right around 11 points per game in fantasy and in PPR leagues. Ito Smith is somebody who could get more work down here the second half of the year, especially if Tevin Coleman, continues to underwhelm. He's somebody you can pick up, stash on the bottom of your bench. If he turns out, great. If he doesn't, just don't drop anybody of huge value for him, but he does have that high upside, and he's somebody I'm looking at here on the waiver wire in Week 9. There's only one other running back that I'm really looking at here to stash in Week 9, and it's Josh Adams of the Philadelphia Eagles. And yes, I know he's on a bye week this week. This is somebody that if you're just looking for maybe somebody to stash at the bottom of your bench that has some upside, that's Josh Adams. Something a little bit telling about Josh Adams and the whole Philadelphia Eagles situation. Who led the backfield in carries for the Philadelphia Eagles here in Week 8? Nope, it wasn't Corey Clement. Wasn't Wendell Don't Tell Me I Have Smallwood. It was Josh Adams who had 9 carries for 61 yards. Now, yes, Smallwood did have 8 carries. He only had 1 more carry than Wendell Smallwood. However, if they start to use this kid more and more, he's somebody who could be very effective in this offense. He's already running behind one of the top offensive lines in all of football. He just needs more of an opportunity. Now, yes, they're on the bye week. This could be a time for them to try turning to Josh Adams a little bit to see what they have with the young kid. Like I said, it's not going to be somebody who you pick up and you just start here next week, Week 10 against Dallas. No, you're going to pick him up, stash him. Don't drop anybody of huge value for him. But if he's sitting out there and you just want to take a flyer on somebody, he does have a lot of upside. He just needs the opportunity. He's somebody that I'm looking at here in Week 9, especially in deeper leagues. All right, moving on to the wide receiver position. The first guy I want to talk about is going to be Courtland Sutton of the Denver Broncos. This past week, Week 8 against the Chiefs, only had 3 catches. 3 catches is the most he's had in a game, and yes, I get that. But this is somebody who could be very intriguing here in the next few weeks. He did have 3 catches for 78 yards, has 2 receiving touchdowns here on the year. However, he's kind of tied to Demaryius Thomas, and Demaryius Thomas' name is all over all kinds of trade rumors here, as the NFL trade deadline is approaching. It's something we need to watch, because if Demaryius Thomas gets dealt, all of a sudden, Courtland Sutton becomes somebody who has a large amount of value in an offense that's being forced to throw the ball a lot. Yes, Emmanuel Sanders is the top target there, but Courtland Sutton has proven to have, exceptional ability going up there, getting the deep ball. It's somebody that Case Keenum is starting to get used to throwing to. He's actually been somewhat more consistent than Demaryius Thomas up until this point. The touchdowns really aren't there, but if Demaryius Thomas is out of the mix, a lot of those targets go Courtland Sutton's way, and he's somebody who could have a lot of value if Demaryius Thomas gets dealt. He's somebody you need to go up there and pick up at least this week if you have room for it. If the trade deadline comes and goes, you can always drop Courtland Sutton again. I wouldn't drop anybody of huge value to grab him, but he is somebody that could absolutely skyrocket up the ranks here in the next week or so if Demaryius gets dealt. Pick him up. Keep an eye on the trade deadline, and you never know. You may have yourself a low-end wide receiver, too, that you just grab off the waiver wire here in Week 9. Next up, we're talking about DJ Moore of the Carolina Panthers, and DJ Moore is starting to get more and more and more involved in the offense here for the Carolina Panthers, and the kid has elite talent. He's struggled at times with drops here to begin the year. This past week against the Baltimore Ravens, who are a very tough defense to throw the ball against, he had 5 catches for 90 yards through the air to go along with another 2 rushes for 39 yards. That's something where they could use him in the offense going forward. He has that ability to take the jet sweep, an option, whatever it may be. DJ Moore, is a great talent, not just catching the ball, but also running with the ball after he's gotten it. He's very elusive, and he's somebody who didn't get a whole lot of opportunity to start the year. However, as these weeks have progressed, he's somebody who's getting more and more acclimated to this offense. They have a couple great matchups coming up for the Carolina Panthers. Going to be at home against the Tampa Bay Bucks this week, and then on the road against the Pittsburgh Steelers the week after that. He's somebody who could be a great bye week fill-in, may even have solid flex play potential here rest of season, and he's only owned right now in 15% of leagues. Looking for a wide receiver, DJ Moore is a great option here second half of the season. Next up on the list is going to be Bigfoot. I mean Devontae Parker. He's somebody on last week's show who I referred to as Bigfoot because I thought we may see a sighting. We hadn't seen him in a while, and boy, did we ever see him. 6 catches for 134 yards, and now all of a sudden everybody thinks Devontae Parker's a wide receiver 1 again. I'm not going that high. I got to see it more than just 1 week against the Houston Texans. However, he is somebody because this team is so riddled with injuries. Albert Wilson, Kenny Stills, all they really have is him and Hakeem Grant and Danny Amendola. Yes, Devontae Parker saw a lot of volume in that game, and with all these injuries, that could continue. He's somebody definitely worth a stash to pick up. Right now, only owned in 13% of leagues. Am I going to pick up Devontae Parker and be totally happy to throw him in my lineup here in Week 9 against the New York Jets? No, I am not. However, he could be a good piece. Pick him up, stash him on your bench, see how he reacts to another game. Is this just a flash in the pan, one-hit wonder for Devontae Parker this season? Or can he come out and continue to put things together? It's worth a shot to grab him, pick him up, see what happens. He's not quite a hashtag on this show. He was trending that way, but if he can keep up games like he had in Week 8, he's definitely somebody with some value here second half of the season, and he's worth a roster spot in most leagues. Next up is going to be David Moore of the Seattle Seahawks, and I kind of like to refer to him as the guy who's stealing all the Doug Baldwin value. This guy's just come out of nowhere. Not a whole lot of people really know who David Moore is, but they're starting to understand. He's had 3 straight games now with double-digit fantasy points in PPR leagues. He's had 4 touchdowns in his last 3 games, and they have a decent matchup coming up. This is somebody who you could pick up, and I would be okay with putting in as a flex play here in Week 9. Like I said, not a whole lot of people know who David Moore is, but he's really gained the attention of Russell Wilson, and more than anything, I said it last week a lot, I expect Russell Wilson to start the turnaround here, second half of the season and really be that elite quarterback. Did I expect it to go to David Moore? Not so much. However, you can't ignore the stats. 4 catches this past week against the Detroit Lions, 97 yards and a touchdown. He's somebody who's highly involved. They got the Chargers at home this week. They're going to have to throw the ball again. And David Moore, being only owned in 3% of leagues, he's definitely worth a stash here on your roster. He could be somebody with a lot of value here second half of the season. Moving on to tight end now, there's really only one guy out there who's under 50% owned that I haven't really touched on here as of late, and I want to make sure I get his name out there so you guys don't forget about him. Who am I talking about? It's the one, the only, Jack motherfucking Doyle of the Indianapolis Colts. Love me some Jack Doyle. He's definitely somebody who has a lot of value going forward. Is it the same amount of value that he had last year? No, it's not. Really, Eric Ebron still is going to demand a lot of targets in that offense, and he's been very productive as of late. But Jack Doyle, though, this past week against the Oakland Raiders, 6 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. That's 19 fantasy points in PPR leagues, and it's somebody who has some value here at a really, really thin position. We say that all the time, how thin the tight end position is. There's a lot of guys that are on bye this week. There's a lot of underperformers out there. Jack Doyle is somebody who can come in, and he has a very safe floor. Does he have a ridiculously high ceiling? He would if there were no Eric Ebron. However, Eric Ebron is there, so that limits Jack Doyle to an extent. Still love him, still love the upside that he brings, and he's still a safe play week in and week out. don't forget to go out there, grab Jack Doyle. If nothing else, he provides you some great tight end depth. And if anything were to happen to Eric Ebron, you have yourself a tight end one here rest of season. Love me some Jack motherfucking Doyle. All right, those are all my top ads here for week 9. There were a few other guys that just barely missed the list. And just real quick to give you those names, Mohamed Sanu of the Atlanta Falcons, coming off bye week, he's less than 50% owned. He's right there near the cutoff, though. Don't forget about Mohamed Sanu, very solid wide receiver. Kiki, do you love me, QT? He's dealing with an injury. But now that Will Fuller is out, once Kiki comes back, he has a lot of value, and he's definitely somebody who needs to be owned in all leagues. And then Rashard Matthews, also somebody we need to keep an eye on. Going to a New York Jets team that's struggling for options there on the outside. Once he gets acclimated in that offense, he could be somebody that has some value down the stretch here. Also, didn't go into too much depth with those guys, but want to make sure I threw those names out to you. If you have any questions, hit them up down below. We got a huge community of people here looking to help each other out. I really appreciate the support. Make sure you guys are checking out the live shows here end of the week. I've been doing them on Saturdays. There's a chance I may do some on Sundays, also earlier Sunday mornings. Be on the lookout for that, though. I really appreciate you guys. Channel's still growing, and that's because of you guys. Hopefully you had a good week. And hopefully the rest of your week is even better. And we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye.